Whew, this video took a lot longer to make than I originally thought it would. I had so much information that I had to condense down to make sure that it doesn't get too long, so hopefully I can keep it as concise as possible. But we're back by popular demand with my Learn the Matchup series, this time for Asuka. Now, quick disclaimer, just like in my last video, I don't claim to be an expert on the character or this matchup, and there's probably a lot more that you could learn on your own by doing research and labbing. But hopefully this video will be able to help you out at least a little bit if you are struggling with this matchup yourself. So this will be just like my last video, where I'll break it up into two sections. Section number 1 will be the key moves of Asuka and any noteworthy things I have to say about them. And then section number 2 will be general strategies and approach. So let's jump into her key moves. So the first move we'll talk about is Asuka's 4-4-3. This is her mid, homing, high crush, safe counter hit launch. Sounds pretty loaded. Also has a lot of range. There's not necessarily a way to beat this move, but there are some setups you can do afterwards you need to look out for, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in the general strategies section. So the next move is her forward 2. As you can see, it is -18. In beginner to intermediate level, Asuka players may throw this out a bit because it kind of high crushes as well, just looking to catch you. But high level Asuka players will only use this move to whiff punish, so you won't have very much opportunity to punish it well. But with that being said, everyone is human, and sometimes Asuka players miss their whiff punishes and you end up blocking the move instead. So I highly recommend that you practice punishing this move in practice mode and really drill it into muscle memory, just in case a high level Asuka happens to miss the whiff punish, or in case you're fighting kind of a mid level or low level Asuka player who just kind of uses it out in the open. But punishing this is a pretty big game changer. So the next move or set of moves that I want to talk about here is her back to 1 and her follow-up strings. So her back to 1 is -7 on block, which may make you inclined to want to attack here and start your pressure, but it's a bait because she has follow-up options. So she may not follow up all the time just to bait you into attacking, but then you're going to get counter hit by some of these other options. So you need to be really careful here. In my opinion, I probably wouldn't attack very often when she's using these strings, but there is an exception to this. If Asuka players notice that you're being too defensive here, they can cancel their stance and go into mix-ups. Like this. If you notice that she's doing this a lot, you can definitely punish her with the big mid launcher right there. Just make sure you're not doing it too often because, like I said, she does have plenty of follow-up steps to counter hit you for a full launch herself. So the next key move we're going to talk about is Asuka's 4-4-1, which is this move right here. It doesn't actually seem that good to me, but I do see Asuka use it from time to time. If she is using this, she's likely being a little bit aggressive, and that's not something that this character is naturally good at, in my opinion. So this move has a few clear weaknesses. One is very slow. So if you're playing the defensive neutral style, then you can easily counter hit her out of this move if she's being really aggressive with it, right? Like, it's pretty easy to do. You probably can't do it on reaction really, but you know, if you're anticipating her to come in, then you can counter hit her pretty consistently. Also, it's very easily side walkable to the left if you don't jump, like so. And yeah, it seems like a pretty decent move. It gets us some frame advantage. It's a counter hit launcher. You know, it's not bad, but like I said, it's really slow and it's easily walkable to the left for sure. So now the next move I wanted to note was her down back 3, which just seemed like a normal low poke at first. It's a little deceptive though. So it looks like a high crushes, and it does at certain frames, but it doesn't high crush right away. So it's pretty easy to counter hit her even with the high attack, unless at a certain point when she's about to hit you. Let's see if I can recreate it right now. Yeah, so right there. It's pretty hard to recreate it, but it doesn't high crush very well or very consistently. It only high crushes at a very certain point in the move. So you can actually hit her out of this move fairly easily if you're playing keep out. Now this move is pretty good on hit. It's +4. So you don't want to be pressing buttons after getting hit by this move. And it's only negative 12 on block, so just use a while standing 4 or whatever punish you have when you block it for that. Now this is an interesting situation that I wanted to talk about. I didn't know this before I was doing research on the character, but this situation actually doesn't seem that good for Asuka right here. So she has a back 4 too, which is negative 12, so you can punish this if you're fast enough. I just do my 10 frame punish. You can punish it, but she does have a follow-up string, which is her back 4 2 3. So if you try to attack, you will get counter hit right here, but it doesn't really do all that much. And if you end up blocking this, it is launch punishable actually, which was really surprising to me. I didn't know that. So, you know, in most cases, she's trying to use this string, just the first 2 hits, to bait you into attacking. And then once you start attacking, she'll start hitting you with the 3rd hit. But if you can get her to use that 3rd hit and you block it, that's a free launcher for you. So this situation, I think, is actually pretty bad for Asuka. And if she's doing this, it should be in your favor most of the time. Alright, so the next move I want to talk about is Asuka's down 1+2. This is her low that knocks you on the ground on hit. It's pretty good on hit. I think it guarantees a free hit for her on Oki. But on block, it's actually really bad for her. It's negative 18. So it's very easily launch punishable. If you block this, you should be launching it. I'm pretty sure every character can launch it pretty easily, so yeah, make her pay for it if you block that move. Okay, so the next move we want to talk about with Asuka is her 1+2. This is a safe mid launcher. It even launches crouching opponents. Comes out at 16 to 17 frames. It's fairly quick. Pretty good move. There's not really much of a way to beat this move particularly, but there are some setups you can do after this. But I'll talk about kind of some of the setups Asuka can do when she's baiting you to attack, when she's like really negative but still safe, in the general strategy section. So we'll save that for that section. Now the next move I want to talk about is Asuka's sidestep 2. This is a fairly evasive move. It's not as evasive as I thought actually, but it's fairly evasive. And it can be spaced out at certain ranges with certain setups that Asuka players tend to do. But again, we'll talk about that in the strategy section. So this evades quite a few things. That actually hit. But usually it evades that. There are a lot of things that it can evade. But if you have a decent move, if you know she's going to go for this, maybe even after a setup or something like that, if you have a decent move with any kind of tracking, you can counter hit her pretty consistently. Yeah, Horing's back 4 works really well in this scenario actually. So, you know, you can kind of figure out which moves hit her out of that. Even though it seems really evasive, it's not quite as evasive as it looks. Alright, now this move is really interesting. This is Asuka's back 3. And it is negative 19. It's probably a move that you're used to online a lot. It's probably, you know, crushes your highs and your lows. It's pretty frustrating to deal with. If I can get it to crush me there. So this move is interesting. It's negative 19, but you need to be aware of the range at which you block it at. And it also depends on which character you're using. So Horing has a pretty good long range launch punish in back 3. But even then, it only works at fairly close ranges. So I'm gonna see if I can recreate a whiff here. Yeah, so when you block this move, it's a little bit difficult to do, but just practice knowing which range you're at when you're blocking it, because it has more pushback at further ranges, and at closer ranges it doesn't really have any pushback at all. So just be aware of that and know which punish actually reaches her for your character. So the next move I want to talk about is Asuka's full crouch down forward 2. This move is used to bait out highs essentially off of certain setups. And when you block it, it is only negative 11. So not only can you only punish it with your while standing 4, for most characters, you need to be pretty quick with it to make sure you get the punish, right? But there are some setups that she may tend to use this off of. Here's one maybe potential setup. And if you get counter hit by it, it guarantees her a pretty beefy counter hit kind of mini launch. It's not really a mini combo, but it does a pretty hefty amount of damage like a mini combo would. So just be aware of when she's in full crouch, she could counter hit you if you tend to press buttons a little bit too much. So just try to play defensive when you can. Now I want to talk a little bit about Asuka's down 2. This is a mid counter hit launcher. And it's a little bit deceptive, right? It looks like she has frame advantage on you, but really you're the one that has frame advantage. So if she tries to attack here, you can actually beat out her attack with pretty much anything you want. You need to be careful though, because if you do start attacking, a good Asuka player will know how to bait it out and whiff punish you for it. Unless your move has a lot of range. Yeah, there's an example. So just be aware of that. You're actually the one that has a bit of frame advantage right there if you block that move, despite how it looks with you getting block stunned. But just be aware of attacking too recklessly, because she can easily backdash and whiff punish you with her forward 2. Okay, I just want to briefly mention her down back 1+2. It's this move that looks kind of like a grab, just pulls you in. You do not want to be pressing buttons right here. She is +8, and she can basically counter hit you with almost any strong launching tool that she has. So be very aware when she grabs you like that. Don't press any buttons. Okay, so there's 2 options she has off of her down forward 1. She has down forward 1-2, which is a high, and if you have the read on her, you can duck and punish her for it. Then she has down forward 1-4, which is the mid, and that is -12. So you know, when she's using her down forward 1 mix-ups, it's just kind of a guessing game. You have to guess which one is coming out based on what read you have. And the final move I want to mention is her while standing 3. Now, most Asuka players, good Asuka players I should say, will really only use this to punish you with. It does have some high crushing properties. So some Asuka players may use it to crush you, or maybe even for keep out purposes. So if you do block it, just know that it is -16, and you should be launch punishing this every single time. Alright, so now let's jump into the general strategy section. Before we start, I just want to mention, you may want to watch my video on chickening. I not only talk about how to chicken reversals, like Asuka's reversal, but also how to use it effectively in your matches. And I also would recommend that you watch my video on the neutral game. I will link both of those videos in the description below if you're interested in those, because they'll help you understand kind of what I'm talking about here in this strategy section. So one thing that Asuka players like to do, or some of them at least, is they might quote unquote try to frame trap you, or pretend like they're frame trapping you to people who don't know that you're actually positive off this down 2 here. So you can easily backdash any of these attempts and just whiff punish them. And here's another one some of them like to use as well. Yeah, it's very easy to backdash stuff right there and whiff punish. Also, like I said, since you're positive there, you can simply interrupt her if you want to attack that way, but I find that backdashing and whiff punishing is much more effective and much safer. Because if you start mashing, she can backdash and then whiff punish you instead, so I would prefer to backdash and whiff punish her. Now, I briefly want to mention Asuka's down 3+4. This move can like destroy armor moves, especially Hwoarang's armor move. It will counter hit you for a really big launch, so if you notice yourself getting counter hit by this with any character, of course you want to kind of be more careful, but with Hwoarang specifically, I would advise against using backlash as much as possible. Especially be careful with how you place it, and only use it maybe if you're trying to catch a sidestep or something like that. But otherwise, I wouldn't really use backlash too much in this matchup, because that's one of many tools that can just counter hit you and cause a lot of damage for you in this matchup. So now I really want to talk about the type of character that Asuka is. I'm just going to show you a bunch of moves to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. In my experience fighting her, at least online, she seems to be a heavy sort of baiting character. Whereas she's trying to bait you to attack when you shouldn't be attacking, and she's trying to bait you into using a bunch of lows and highs when you shouldn't be using lows and highs, right? So all of these moves here have some sort of crushing property that either crushes lows or highs. On top of that, she has a lot of moves that are sort of deceptive, as in they make it seem like she might be punishable when she's actually completely safe, and it may make it even seem like she has frame advantage when in all actuality she doesn't. So she's a little bit counterintuitive to play against if you haven't labbed her at all. And I'm going to show you an example of her sort of baiting people into attack, like maybe a setup that you might encounter online. So this is her 4-4-3. And she's completely safe after this. And you might notice that she tends to parry right here, or reversal. Use a reversal, right? And if you watch my reversal video, I talked about how you should know how to chicken off of at least one move when you're fighting against Asuka, right? So practice chickening at least with one move. And this is where that move would come in handy. So you ideally want to pick a move that would beat all of her crushing options here and throw a chicken with it. So I want to show you another example with sort of the same setup off of 4-4-3, where she's kind of baiting you to use high attacks so she can counter hit you. So after you block 443, she's -9, and you may decide that you want to attack and begin your pressure. And one way that you might do that is with jabs. So this is what could happen if you do that. So one thing that you really need to be super aware of when you're fighting against the Asuka player, other than getting your punishes correct and stuff like that, is watch for her setups. So really pay attention to when you get hit by one of her keep out moves or one of her kind of crushing moves when you're trying to attack, and think about the move that she used right before that. Likely she used a setup on you that caused you to think that it's your turn, but really it's not your turn, and she punished you for it, right? She punished you for attacking when you shouldn't have been attacking. So watch for those setups and watch for those moves that she uses to set you up for, so that the next time she uses it, you can be patient and not fall into her trap of crushing your moves when you attack. And in some instances, you can even punish her for a lot of the crushing moves that she uses if you wait for the right opportunity. So the last point I would like to mention is that Asuka is really great at playing the defensive neutral style, which means she wants you to play overly aggressive so she can punish you for pressing too many buttons. And the best way to approach this style of play is to approach with the baiting neutral style, which essentially means you want to be doing a lot of dash blocking. You want to be attacking every now and then to make her think that you're being really aggressive, to bait out her crushing moves and hopefully wait for her to make a mistake, and then you can punish her for it that way. But patience is really key in this matchup for most characters. Now, some characters do have moves with a lot of big hitboxes that hit her out of all of her crushing moves, and in that case, you may be able to bypass this and play a little more aggressively without having to worry about being crushed as much. But for my character, and I'm not sure maybe other characters who don't have really good hitboxes on their moves, you need to be patient and you need to be careful with how you approach her. So I want to give you one final example of how Asuka could bait you into pressing too many buttons and you getting punished for it. Now I don't know if this is actually a setup that you might encounter, but you will encounter very similar setups online. I just kind of made this one up on the spot to show something. So right there, after her down 2, you may be inclined to attack, in which case you could use sidestep 2 to evade your attack, right? So let's say you're patient here and you wait for the sidestep 2. And then you try to attack. Oh, well, she's back 3 now and crushed you again. So it's like an inception level of baiting. Like she baits you into a bait into another bait. And you have to be really aware of when the correct opportunity presents itself. So in this scenario, there are actually 2 opportune moments for you to punish her. So after down 2, you can actually backdash the back 2 right here, or the sidestep 2, and whiff punish her that way. The sidestep 2 off of her setups, I may have mentioned previously, it doesn't have a lot of range. So if you notice that she's setting you up and then doing a sidestep 2, anticipate the sidestep 2 and simply throw in a quick backdash, and you can whiff punish her that way very easily. Another opportune moment, if you happen to block the sidestep 2, is waiting for the back 3 and then launch punishing that instead. Of course, you may want to dash up really quickly if you think the back 3 is coming in and then block quickly. It is a little bit risky that way, but you want to make sure that you're actually in range to punish the back 3 if you do block it. So, in conclusion, Asuka is a character with very strong baiting tools to trick you into attacking when you shouldn't be and punishing you for it with mostly moves that crush a lot of your attacks. These are very difficult to deal with when you don't know the matchup, but become significantly easier to deal with when you know exactly what she's doing and the weaknesses of these setups that she's using. Just be really aware of which crushing moves you're getting hit with and know the weaknesses of them, whether they have range issues or many of them are launch punishable even. And watch out for the ones that this specific Asuka player that you're playing against uses to make sure that you don't get hit with the same baiting setup twice. If you're aware of most of her tools and the weaknesses to these tools, then this matchup becomes significantly easier. But that'll about wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.